Peter he's been in Chattanooga since 1997, but he grew up in Western Canada. He is the manager of Chattanooga's Forestry, and as the city forester, Peter takes care of the trees on city properties and rights of way, plans and inspects new tree plantings, and provides urban forestry outreach to residents and community groups. He's a certified arborist and a Master of Science in Urban Forestry from Virginia Tech. Peter, it's all yours.
Thanks, Suzanne and Tom. Thanks for having me here, Master Gardeners. I'm really happy to be here. I, for a long time, wanted to get to know more about the program and about extension in general. I'll try to move pretty quickly through this, try to keep it about 20 minutes and leave time for questions. I'm just describing what I do here and what the program does. And I'm guessing, in fact, I know Gene's presented to Master Gardeners several times before. So some of this might be familiar to some of y'all. I'm new to the position. Gene retired in January, and we overlapped for the month of January. I wish I got to job shadow him for 6 months. I'm still trying to figure out how he did everything he did. Gene's been a huge mentor to me, and I talk with him every week. So what is urban forestry? That to some people sounds like a contradiction in terms. You could compare it to traditional forestry, where you're managing forested lands for timber, wildlife, recreation, water quality, and of course, to reduce fire risk. So an urban forester also manages forested lands just in settled areas. Could be cities, suburbs, small towns for other objectives. And there's a lot of them. Shade is a big one. Also wildlife habitat for recreation, for water quality, air quality, also to reduce the risks, mostly by falling trees and branches, and then the value to the landscape. One short way to say it is just trying to maximize those benefits while keeping the risks. Another way to look at it is it's part of bigger project of urban natural resources, which Anna and Lynn are also as part of the land managers working group at the city. It's a Forest Service definition here of what are urban natural resources. It's green infrastructure and constructed elements that improve quality of life and biodiversity. So some examples: forested areas, street trees, green roofs, gardens, farms, streams, trails, stormwater management. There's many others. But so the urban forest is just one part of that bigger project. And that's how I think about my work. Some of the history, I'm sure many of y'all are much more familiar with some of these chapters than me. These are notes I borrowed from Gene, and I'm interested to go farther back in time, especially in the early 20th century, to see what was going on. I've looked at a lot of photos from that. What was the project on the Times Free Press that went back? The Lost Story. Photos even from the 70s. The downtown area looks dramatically different. Very few trees. In the late 80s, and then in 1990, the tree ordinance was passed, which created Gene's position, or the city forester position, created the tree ordinance and the tree commission. So all that started in 1990. Gene was hired, and he spent 30 years at the city building the program. He had no budget, no staff. He started from scratch in 1990. In the 2000s, the Take Root initiative was funded, I believe, mostly by Lyndhurst, and that resulted in about 1,400 trees planted downtown. And in the 2010s, we've absorbed a couple smaller departments. Past year, right after Gene retired, 30th year as a Tree City, USA. These are some clippings. I'll just skim through these. I scanned a bunch of Gene's files. This goes back to 1990 and some planting events. This was the white oak on Mountain Creek Road at Ashland Terrace that he saved acorns from. It was dated over 300 years, and these trees at, I think it's Red Bank Elementary, were propagated from that original tree. And they gave away seedlings to anyone and everyone. 2007, this is when the Peace Grove was planted, the Trees for Sister Cities in Coolidge Park. And this is our Arbor Day event this past March at the Southside Community Park. The city forester's position is laid out in the tree ordinance that's part of the city code. There's three main areas. One is just operations, planting, pruning, taking down hazardous trees. Permits, which you might not think about much unless you're a builder, engineer, or deal with these regularly. But the tree ordinance permit is for most commercial projects. Some larger residential projects will be required to plant trees as part of streetscape improvements, street trees. And there's a permit required for that. And also any impact to existing street trees needs to be permitted as part of a construction project. So that's a big part of my job, is reviewing plans and inspecting job sites. The master street tree plan, I don't know that we've ever had a complete master street tree plan. It would be a huge project. I'd love to work on that with the help of a landscape architect. Gene's been involved in a lot of planning projects, including inventories, remote sensing analyses that give snapshots of the bigger urban forest, annual reports, and 5-year management plans. Our department is not just forestry. Our forestry crew is made up of 9 positions, and we do everything I just described. We also have this emergency department. The main role of the emergency department is just to keep road hazards. They do a lot of cleanup of fallen branches and trees after hours. It's a 24/7 department. They also do other odds and ends, litter, tires, dump sites, and 24/7 road hazards, from spills to rock slides, icy patches, trees down, anything like that. We get calls from 911 dispatch 24/7. And then we also have the central business district crew, which does downtown cleanup, downtown garbage, and then some horticultural work and leaf cleanup. That is and over them is Milton Stewart. He's no relation to me. He's the forestry supervisor. So that is our department. For permitting, like I mentioned, for most commercial projects, part of the plans review team for civil plans, work with a lot of people in CDOT and the land disturbing office, or land development office. So I'll review plans before the project, and then I will make sure they're holding to the plans during construction. This could mean tree protection fences. It could mean proper pruning. It often means inspecting planting, which will take, there's a long checklist involved in making sure trees are planted correctly. Here's a couple examples. You might have seen, on the right is the River Rocks project. It's a large residential development on 4th Street between Walnut and Cherry. We had to decide we're going to try to, because they're building right to the property line, it's zoned UGC, so that they're building a 4 or 5-story building right at the property line. We have a row of healthy lacebark elms. Are we going to look at removing and replacing, or are we going to try to work with this project? We decided to prune them pretty hard, as you can see, and try to keep them, and they've responded pretty well so far. And the other photo is a project, I think that's the one on Underwood Street. It's just like many I'm involved in with street trees being planted. There's a lot that goes into make sure that they are planted correctly and survive. For planning, these are a couple shots of, on the right this was part of a land cover analysis that Gene contracted out. American Forest actually conducted this. So this is using satellite data to see where the tree cover is in Chattanooga and where it might need to be or could be increased. This is from 2010. Our actual tree inventory data on the left, that was conducted by hand on foot, or collected on a tablet, but collected at ground level. We have inventory data for the downtown area and some pockets of town. Both of these are pretty old, 2008 for the inventory and 2010 for the land cover analysis. That's something I'd like to update in the near future. Other duties, pest and disease diagnosis, and hazard tree evaluation is a big one. And then outreach and events. Arbor Day is the biggest event. That's something organized by the Tree Commission, but there have been plenty of other outreach projects that Gene's been part of. It's something I'd love to get more involved in. Where to reach us? For any tree concerns, I really recommend using the 311 app. It helps us keep all of the requests in one place, and my email's here too. And I'll, if there's a follow-up to this, we can post this whole presentation. But feel free to contact me by email with any larger concerns. What we don't do, and I'd spend a lot of time explaining this to callers and requests from 311. So we only work on city trees, either on a city-owned property or on the right-of-way. The right-of-way is it's a hard to define thing, but it's everything between properties. And there are times that we'll trim a privately owned tree if it's impeding the right-of-way, but we will never remove it, or there are very few circumstances where we'll remove a private tree. So the questions along with that is how to determine, is it public or private tree? I would use the Hamilton County GIS map. And often this is something I'm doing differently than Gene. Gene did a lot of consulting for private trees. I am referring people to arborists. We have way more qualified arborists in Chattanooga now than even 10 years ago, definitely more than 20 years ago. There are, if you go to the treesaregood.org website, you can look up arborists by location. I think there's about 15 listed, and we have several more than that. And many of these people are years, if not decades of experience. So I always recommend for people with questions about private trees, privately owned trees, to contact a certified arborist. And a couple shots of recent projects. We were bracing this tree in Eastlake Park, meaning putting threaded rod right through the trunk. It was splitting. This is old school tree work, but it can be really effective. It's rewarding to see. We'll check this in a year or two. Hopefully we'll be physically healing back together. This is a big tree to attempt. This photo is not ours. I forgot to take photos last week, but we now have an air spade, which is going to be a big help with doing below ground amendments and improvements to the soil. It's a high-powered air gun. It doesn't damage the root bark. Another project that was started this spring after the tornado, replanting project in East Brainerd. Some thoughts for the future. These are things that I'm interested in getting more involved in, or focuses I want to work on. One is canopy equity across neighborhoods, making sure all neighborhoods have access to the benefits trees provide. This map is from Trust for Public Land, and it shows the urban heat island effect. And it's mostly in the historic neighborhoods, and East Brainerd are where the urban heat island is most concentrated. Citizen engagement, volunteer projects. I would love to restart the Citizen Forester program that Gene and others with the Tree Commission had going in recent years. This was something similar to Master Gardeners for tree volunteer events. I would love to have volunteer corps to help with small tree pruning and potentially with inventory too. Diverse plantings of trees and other plants. I'd love to see the understory gardens that Lucy Ellis and Lynn and others helped get going. Is a really, really cool project. I'd love to be part of similar projects, and even just planting more plants in the tree pits along with the trees. That's what I got. This is another. This is a tree we're trying to save as part of. They're going to do redevelopment of the landscape at Sturchy Farms.
Does the city have mulch available for free anywhere, or do you have to buy it?
As far as I know, it's still true, Pete. I haven't done it myself recently. I've been trying to work with when Gene, gosh, this goes back 5 years, we wanted to have them mix at least one pile for with grass clippings and wood chips, make it into more of a soil that you could be using for projects like Master Gardener projects. And it never really took. They carted it off one day to Bowater or something like that. So it'd be nice to have not only a chip pile for mulch, but a pile for a mixture. And they could do the mixture very easily with their front end loaders.
Sure.
Keep it just for, I was thinking maybe if they wanted to do enough for the whole community, but just for outreach with nonprofits would be nice.
I'm very interested in wood recycling projects. What complicates it right now is that the city doesn't process the brush anymore. We contracted it; it's contracted out, and so there is still a tub grinder back there and semi trucks of mulch going out every day, but it's all run by a private contractor. So it may not be our mulch, our debris as soon as we dump it. I'm not sure how it works.
It's only free for city residents, though. If you live
Okay.
outside the city, you got to pay.
Okay, so they'll even load your truck for you. Trouble getting the trees I want in some situations, but I plan on using only natives unless there's a overwhelming reason to use a non-native tree.
Up in New England, we had a lot of problems with the Asian longhorn beetle. And I was wondering if it's wandered this far south already, if it should be monitored.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of a nightmare species. The ash borer, as you all know, has been here for years and it's already killed most of the ash trees. The longhorn beetle can feed on over 100 different species, where with the ash borer, we're mostly talking about 2 species. So the potential threat from the longhorn beetle is much worse. As far as I know, there are no populations south of southern Ohio. But the answer is yes, we should be doing monitoring. That's something I would love to be involved in, if not us, then be at least partnered with an agency that does that. You might have seen that a lot of the young elms are dying. See this, they've been planting a lot of the medians downtown. And these are mostly Princeton elms, so they're hybrid elms that were supposed to be Dutch elm disease resistant, but a lot of them are dying this year. And we've heard from the state that it's not necessarily Dutch elm, it's elm yellows, which is a different fungal pathogen. But that's the one that's concerning me right now. I really wish we could bring back more American elms.
Stewart at Chattanooga.gov. All right. Well, I would like us to all do the old Zoom wave and thank Peter and Lynn and Anna for joining us and enlightening us. And I hope this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, as the saying goes. And thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This is great.